Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. I'm going to keep today's introduction short because I'm just going to talk to you about 10 things every new homeschooling parent needs to know. Well, from the looks of things, homeschooling is all the rage right now. So what I want to do today is I want to share 10 things to help those of you who are thinking about getting into the actual homeschooling life. Now, the first thing that I want to tell you that every homeschooling parent needs to know is that if someone else is dictating what your kids are learning, you are not technically homeschooling. So that includes parents who have their kids doing work that the school gave to them, or they might be online talking to their teachers. Legally speaking, that is not homeschooling. And the reason that I find that really important to point out, one of the reasons, is because I know that a lot of parents are getting really stressed out over this school at home that has kind of been flung at them unexpectedly that they weren't prepared for. And I'm afraid that that is what a lot of parents envision homeschooling to be. So before all this started, there were 3.5 million homeschoolers in the United States already. And what we do is not what is happening in most homes nowadays. And I'm afraid that if parents get that kind of a picture and think that that's what homeschooling is all about, once those schools open back up, they're going to just cart their kids off and they're not even going to think twice about it. So what I want you to really understand is that when you are actually homeschooling, you as the parent decide what your kids are going to learn. You as the parent decide what tools or resources your kids are going to learn. You as the parent decide how long you are going to do school every day, what your approach is going to be. You have so much more freedom than what most people are looking at homeschooling as being. Okay, so that's something that I really think is important to point out, is that if you are not the one making the decisions and giving the assignments and choosing curriculum, then that is not technically homeschooling. And you might want to kind of take a step out into the actual homeschooling world, because I promise you, there's so much more freedom in it. Okay, so the second thing is that homeschooling does not have to take 6 hours a day. Just because kids are in school 6 or 7 hours a day does not mean that homeschooling takes 6 hours a day. Kids who are in school have so many interruptions throughout the day, whether it would be, taking roll call, having the teacher just figure out who is buying lunch and who's packing, waiting for the bells, having disciplinary issues taken care of, having assemblies or people making announcements. Then you have homework being passed out, homework being turned back in, homework being gone over, and then having individual kids having help done. A lot of times when kids are doing seat work, once they're done, they have to sit there and wait for the rest of the period while the other kids in the class get done. So these are all things that contribute to unnecessarily long days, unnecessarily if you are in the homeschooling atmosphere. When your kids are homeschooling, when they're done doing their work, they're done. They don't have to wait for anyone. And unless they have other siblings, which I'm sure they won't have 25 or 30 other siblings, they're not going to have to sit there and wait for really long periods of time before you can help them. You don't have to deal with things like roll call or getting to and from school or having assemblies. So in all honesty, what I found that the average homeschooling day takes for most families, if you factor in from the shorter end to the longer end, it usually turns into about 2.5 to 3 hours a day to homeschool. So the third thing is that you don't need to replicate school. That's another thing that you see being passed around like wildfire right now on social media, are these elaborate teacher schedules where they tell you what your kids should be doing from the morning till sometimes dinner time, what your kids should be doing step by step. And you know what? I know for a fact that that is stressing a lot of parents out. But here's the deal. Your child's teacher is not their parent. Your kids are home with you. You are the parent. And when you are homeschooling, your homeschool doesn't have to look anything at all like school. Your kids don't have to raise their hands. They don't have to ask to go to the bathroom. You don't even have to use textbooks. There are so many different approaches that you can use to teach your kids, and none of them have to look like school. And that is something that really, I think, takes a big weight off of parents' chests when they realize that, because a lot of kids don't learn well from textbooks, and textbooks are boring. As a homeschooling parent, sometimes it's hard to teach from textbooks. Isn't it a great thing to know that if they don't work for your kids, you don't have to use them? You can use library books. You can use documentaries. You can use books that you have around the house. You can use magazines. You can even go out in the yard, do nature study, go for walks, do nature study that way. There are so many different ways that you can approach learning. And you know what? None of them have to look like school. So the fourth thing I want to talk to you about is that shorter lessons are more effective. That's another thing that you see on those schedules, is that they will have, like 45 minutes scheduled for math and 45 minutes scheduled for reading. And what I have found with my own children, now I have to say, if you haven't been here before, I have 11 kids. I am down to homeschooling 8 kids this year. So this is actually our 11th year homeschooling. What I have found with my kids is that if I made their lessons too long, after about 10 or 15 minutes, I started to lose them anyway. They would start rushing around. They would start looking uncomfortable. They would start spacing out, and I could tell that they were not listening to anything that I was saying. And that is typical for a lot of kids. That's typical for a lot of adults. I'm the same way. So when you keep a lesson to the child's attention span, something that they can handle, what is better? Having a child's full attention for the first 10 or 15 minutes so that you know that they are retaining it, or having their attention for 10 or 15 minutes and then just dragging the rest of the time out just so that you can say that you did it, for your child to probably remember almost nothing. So the fifth thing that I want to talk to you about is that playing is learning. This is something else that is so important. Kids need time for unstructured play. I'm not talking about these little play activities that you plan out for your kids and you tell them what to do and what your plans are for them. I'm talking unstructured play, where you just tell your kids, go play, and you let them have at it. Sure, of course, you can provide resources, you can provide toys for them or materials for them, but this isn't something that you, the parent, are directing, or that you, the parent, even necessarily have to be involved in with them. Kids learn best through natural play. And I think sometimes that it's funny that we parents so often try to teach our kids how to play when kids are like the experts at playing. We parents don't need to show our kids how to play. So yeah, give your kids lots of free time. If you have older kids who don't necessarily play, they still need that free time. They still need the time to do the things that they want to do, to pursue their own interests. Give it to them. So the sixth thing that I want to talk to you about today is that preschool and pre-K are unnecessary. Now, there are a few circumstances where you might have, say, a 4-year-old who has older siblings who are homeschooling and they really, really, really want to be a part of it. My youngest daughter was actually one of those kids. I was not jumping at the chance to homeschool her when she was 4, but she was asking to do her own schoolwork because she wanted to be like her siblings. So if that's the case, yeah, give your 4-year-old, a little phonics book or have them work in math sometimes, but don't force it on them. If it's something that you begin to think that has to be done every single day and it becomes a chore for your child, just remember, those younger ages especially are the prime time for learning through play. 2, 3, and 4-year-olds do not need sit-down seat work. It has almost no benefit when you compare it to the benefits that come with, what did I talk about before? Play. Let your kids play. Let your kids be kids. So the seventh thing that I want to talk to you about is that kids don't learn everything at the same time. Every child has their own timeline, and that is okay. School, on the other hand, wants all kids in the same grade level to learn at, almost everything, or everything, in fact, at the same time, because it helps them to keep moving those things along that conveyor belt. And yeah, they don't call them factory school models for nothing. They are more or less factories. So schools really do have, it's a benefit more for them than what it is for the kids when they're trying to have all the kids learn things at the same time. Actually, even though it does benefit the school, because again, it helps to keep that conveyor belt going, kids are often really disadvantaged when they're pushed into things too early, or sometimes they might be held back so that they can kind of stay with the rest of the class. So teachers might not want to give the kids work that they really should be doing that is more advanced. This is an advantage of homeschooling. If your child is learning something that they are not ready for, you can pull back on it and you can take your time and you can let your child do it when they are ready. If they breeze through something and are ready to move on to the next concept, or maybe even to the next grade level, they can do that in your homeschool. You have that freedom. Don't ever feel that just because your kids are not doing something that other kids their age are doing, or that maybe their siblings did at that age, it does not necessarily mean that there is anything wrong with your child. Kids are not cookie cutter images of one another. They have their own individual timelines. They are unique. Let them be that way. So the 8th thing that I want to talk to you about is that socialization is a made-up concept, and it was popularized to acclimate people to the idea of age-segregated learning. So before compulsory schooling ever became a thing, socialization was unheard of. People didn't talk about socialization. The only time that socialization, which technically is for dogs and not children, came about was that they wanted a way to make parents feel better about the fact that their kids are going to be stuck in classrooms every single day, all year long, with kids who are all the same age as them. That is when socialization came about. The reality is that when your kids have daily access to people of all ages, it is actually more beneficial to them when they are with only kids who are around the same age and who live in the same neighborhood as they do. Imagine that though. When your kids are in a classroom with 30 other kids the same age as them, that is for a large part of the day who is raising them. That is their influence. Is that what you want? Kids who are at home and who have who are exposed to people of different ages, whether they be adults or teenagers, older siblings, younger siblings, they have a variety and they can learn different behaviors from those people who went before them. So the 9th thing that I want to talk to you about is that life skills are often more important than academics. We forget about life skills far too often, and it's something that a lot of the schools forget about too. Although, okay, I don't want to say that they forget about them. Sometimes I think they purposely do that. But how many kids are there who don't know how to do the basic things once they've graduated from school? When you're homeschooling, you can teach your kids how to do those really basic, crucial things that they're going to need to know how to do as adults. So what is more important, knowing how to make a meal or knowing what the Pythagorean theorem is? Which one are you going to use more in everyday life? So a lot of times what they call home ec in school is considered an elective, and it's looked down, not really looked down upon, but it's looked at as being less important than those major subject areas. I know I'm doing a lot of air quotes today. I'm bothering myself too. But anyway, life skills are just as important, if not more important, than a lot of the academic learning that kids are doing in school. A lot of that academic learning that they're doing in school is rote memorization. They are memorizing things so that they can spit it back out at the given time, whether it's for a test, whether it's for a quiz, whatever. But down the road, it's likely not something that they're ever going to need or that they're going to remember. But when you give kids activities or teach them how to do things that they know are going to be helpful for them, or that they know they're going to have a need for, those are the things that they're not only going to remember, but that they are going to actually use. And so the last thing that I want to talk to you about today is that as a new homeschooler, as a veteran homeschooler, as a homeschooler who has been homeschooling for any length of time, don't be afraid to change things, because guess what? Sometimes things might seem like they're working really well for a long period of time, but then all of a sudden it just seems like it doesn't fit your household anymore. And it's okay to change things. You are not bound to any curriculum. You're not bound to finish any one certain thing. You're not bound to always follow that lesson plan that is so nicely written down in your planner book. You, as the homeschooling parent, decide what it is that your children are going to do. So whether they have done something for 3 weeks and it's not working and you want to change it, you have the freedom to do that. If your kids have been doing the same routine for 2 years and then it starts not working, again, you have the freedom to do that. Don't be afraid to change things. We as people grow and change all the time, and your curriculum will need to do it too sometimes. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you might be able to leave one below. Right now, YouTube has them on. They usually don't. If not, you can go over to Instagram and leave a comment there. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.